broadcast mode when I'm at a party with a bunch of fucking suits. You know, when you're walking the fucking red carpet. I don't know if I'm in that fucking...
Oh, what's up, dog?
What's up, man? How are you, brother?
Fantastic. How are you?
Good.
You remember Ken, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Nice to see you, man.
What's up, Brian?
What do you know?
Got the first
Not
ones
much.
on?
Where's
Not
the casting couch, dude?
Oh, we're just gonna do it in the chairs.
You know what the casting couch is?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. That's the good stuff.
Dude, brought the laptop so we can Google some shit if we have to.
Nice, man. There you
I got
go.
one too, man. I want to slow down the internet, though.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to Clinton, man, and to get your input on too. I didn't know you did a lot in foreclosures.
I did. In 2008, that's what it turned into, man. I went from crushing it to short sales to foreclosures.
Oh, you know what? He's a pretty straight-laced guy. I don't think he'd be down to take this with us, but you guys want to take kava? You ever had kava?
Dude, Islanders.
Oh, yeah, man.
Dude, it doesn't do anything.
All right.
What is this? Is some kind of a...
It's a root.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything to you, I promise. You'll be fine. It's like the calming of like a chew or like a cigarette.
That's what I've got in my mouth right now.
Yeah.
Oh.
It
I mean,
won't
they're
do-
good, man.
It won't do anything to you, I promise.
Make your mouth numb.
No, good.
All right, man.
I'll keep it. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it later.
All
I
right.
played rugby.
All right,
drink
I'll
that shit.
Oh, yeah,
Guys,
man.
Like,
Yeah.
we would drink this.
Polly's
beer.
are big. My brother-in-law is friends with all the Pollys, and
Muddy water.
you can't say, but you gotta take the whole thing.
That's interesting.
Wow.
You guys are so funny. Yeah, I can't believe, like, after, like, big rugby stuff, like, events and stuff, we would, like, everybody would sit around. And, like, kind of the leader of the group sits in one spot, and then everyone kind of sits accordingly around. And then they bring out the muddy water, and they'll dip coconut in it. And then everyone passes around and drinks it, and they'll drink, like, gallons of that shit.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, and
Until
you just
they
like sit around,
throw up.
Dude, they all get hammered, but like I feel like Polynesians, I feel like any poly, like their substance, like they don't have like the same, like they can't drink, like if they drink they get like super fucked up, you know, or like if they do kava root, which doesn't make me feel any type of way, they get like fucked up off it, you know what I mean?
I wonder if they have like different DNA. Their DNA reacts differently to certain
I think
things.
all native peoples do. I worked on the Indian reservation in South Dakota for a long time, and North Dakota. Yeah, and they just don't have whatever the
Tolerance.
some type of DNA genetic code, whatever. Yeah, they just don't. Yeah, they don't. It's
Well,
not
it's
like
like,
white people drinking it.
One time I gave a poly kid on my rugby team one mushroom stem. It was a pretty good sized one, but it wasn't like anything crazy. And dude, he lost his damn mind. Like, I didn't even know what to do because I'd never experienced anything like that. Like he was like
someone freaking out.
Yeah, dude, he was like trying to fight strippers and like telling them that they were like possessed by demons.
You gotta give one right on the chin, dude.
Dude, like all this weird shit. Like,
nah, even that. I had a friend. I'll tell after my friend's first psychedelic experience.
Yeah, dude, and then we got back in the bus and we're trying to get him back. Like everyone was like trying to get him in the room. He was fighting everybody. Like we would go spent the night in the lobby, lost his shoes. Like, dude. Lost his damn mind off of a stem. And I'm like, dude, this is like a daily.
That'd be low tolerance.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he just would wig out. But all polys, like, they can't handle their alcohol. And it's not like a bad thing. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I just have spent a lot of time with Polynesian people.
Right.
And they
stick to kava instead of
alcohol. Exactly. And it fucks them up too, you know?
Oh, here he is. Nice.
Yeah, man, it seems to be a lot more devastating just tolerance level. Like I said, like the Native Americans do. I used to work on the res. I mean, they didn't just drink like occasionally.
we never asked them like how much they had to drink. The question always was how long have you been drinking
Come
for?
on in.
What's
Meet
up,
the
man?
guys. Oh my
How's it going?
gosh, that's a
Okay.
tight fit.
What is it?
Ken,
Ken, Clinton Peterson.
nice to meet you.
Leslie Walker.
Leslie
Yeah.
Walker, pleasure.
Yeah,
nice to meet you guys.
Clinton. Clint.
Yeah.
Which one? What do you prefer? Which one? do you go by?
Clinton.
Clinton. Gotcha.
Yeah, full on Clinton.
Awesome.
How's Gary?
Well,
Good to see
I'm
you,
good,
man.
man. Will you close that door?
Yeah.
Doing good, man. Just having some buddies over to talk about life. How about you?
I'm phenomenal. I could not be any better.
Nice.
I'm in a great place.
Are you?
Yeah, probably the best place I've ever been in.
No way.
Yeah. It feels good.
Good for you.
So everything, business, relationship, the whole kit.
Well,
nice, man.
Yeah.
For our first episode, I brought Google. So if
Google,
we have
man.
something we need to look up real quick or check the facts on.
Yeah, that's good to know. It's a valuable resource. You can get
So we don't get canceled.
sign of our times, dude.
Right.
Well,
Giving people
Just say COVID.
misinformation.
Yeah.
Just say COVID
I
and
know,
vaccines
yeah.
and start
Well,
this out.
In fact, we've had one episode taken down for that.
Oh, really? Which one?
The one with my buddy Sean got taken. 5 minutes in, because we were talking about everything you're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
So it wasn't super surprising, but we were talking about, oh my gosh, just weird stuff. He's big into conspiracies.
You don't talk about weird stuff.
Nah,
What are you talking-
barely.
you're pretty inside the box.
I try to be.
Yeah.
Just
That's
wake
one of the things I
up,
like
go
about
to
him.
work.
Yeah.
You know, he keeps it real.
Just a straight laced
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
I have a shirt that says, one of them says "Frown more," and then the other one says, "Oh shoot, now I'm blanking." Hold on, I have a picture of it. This is good. Keep going though. I can't believe I'm spacing it. It's
No,
my
we were
favorite
talking
shirt.
Indigenous people and
Yeah.
their tolerance to
tolerance.
substances.
Yeah.
But really, man, what I wanted to talk about was this market. Having you come on today, Clinton, and when I was talking to Leslie this morning, because Leslie's in real estate also, and you have a company that deals in real estate.
So what exactly? What do you both of you guys do? Just so because I don't have any idea.
Yeah, connect all the dots.
Yeah. let's
I
do it.
own a company called Foreclosure Help.
Okay.
We're across the U.S. that we help people that are in pre-foreclosure situations,
Gotcha.
and it's blown up.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a real estate agent here in Boise, and been a real estate agent for like 20 years, which makes me old.
Yeah.
And went through the whole crash of 2008 and dealt with when we were crushing it, just absolutely selling houses like we are now. And then all of a sudden it slowed down, and there was a bunch of short sales, which were terrible. And then finally the foreclosures, like multiple years of foreclosures to where we are now. So when Gary said that he was having a guy come over that works with foreclosures, I was interested to see what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Because on this other side of things, on the selling side and the listing side, like it couldn't be better right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Fun fact that I actually did a little stint before I went and sold door to door, and we were buying like groups of homes in the Midwest, which is a little bit different because they were houses that haven't been owned in a while. Most of them were like flop houses and stuff like that. We would remodel them for a small amount per house, and then we'd sell them to French or German companies, and then those companies would then lease them out to government assistant Section 8, which is crazy. Like in the Midwest, most of those places are owned by French or German companies.
Where in the Midwest?
Michigan, Kansas, Missouri, Chicago, Iowa, Indiana, all those places combined. I mean, you could buy in South City or like Pagedale or something along those lines in St. Louis. There's 93 municipal counties. You could buy groups of homes for like 3 or 4 houses for like $40K, and then
They were just dumps.
yeah, I mean, and they're not even actually that bad. It's just like there's whole areas in this country where their flop house was basically like nobody actually owns these homes, and they've been there forever, and people just go there and Like you'll go there and like knock on the door, and they'll have a house set up, and it's like a normal family living in there, but they don't own the house. Nobody's ever kicked them out. Yeah.
Oh,
What year was this?
Oh, so you're saying they were squatting in it?
2010, 2011.
Yeah, see, there were people that were either squatting in it or had been.
Yeah.
So we dealt with a lot of that too, where the people who were foreclosing on the houses because it took so long, like the foreclosures were taking 18 months, 2 years sometimes.
Right, they would just stay in there.
Well, they would just rent. They would leave and rent the house out to someone else.
Oh, no way.
All the time. And then as a realtor, we contracted with all the asset holding companies to manage their listings. And so one of our jobs, we call it, it was scavenging at first. We would go to these houses and we didn't know if there was going to be people in there or not, or if they were just vacant. But when they were vacant, the people left all kinds of shit in there. I'm talking all kinds of good shit, a lot of stuff.
Just like they would just up and leave the house.
They would take their own. Yeah, it was crazy.
Take what you could fit in the car, leave the rest.
Or even some other. Yeah, I mean, I can tell. Some people they would take fixtures out of the houses.
The majority of what Leslie owns today is from those foreclosure homes.
Yeah. Hey, it was a great way to fund.
Have you seen the warehouse?
It was a great way to fund a really tough time. Really tough time. But to your point would be we would show up and somebody had been renting the house for like a year. They were paying them, $1,500 a month, whatever, like rent. And we would show up and say, hey, the bank's taking this place and you have to get out now. And we would start doing this thing. At first, it was a big problem because they wouldn't leave. But then we started doing this thing called cash for keys, where the bank would pay somebody a proportional amount depending on the property and the time frame that they could get out. And then they had to turn it over with me. We walk to the house, but we give them $3, $5, $7,000.
Oh, wow.
To get him out of there.
Because the damage that was being done was so crazy,
Right.
and just to get them out.
Well, not only the damage, but the foreclosure process for banks to run through is costing them tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Per
So
house.
if they can just get them out, then they don't have to go through the legal process of
Yeah,
attorneys
and
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 everything.
this was in Oregon, and so the Oregon property rights they're ridiculous. I mean, you can't.
So someone can squat. They have a lot of legal protection to just stay in there. Wow.
But even with that being said, back then it was so crazy. Most people, when we came up, and we never had anybody that I can recall that actually enacted any type of legal action. They just left,
Damn,
eventually. But with that being said, obviously the question, man, is what that doesn't seem like. How's the market? What's happening with that?
What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, because when I heard that he had somebody with foreclosures, I was like, wow, that'd be good to know, because I know how banks can kind of sometimes carry a lot of properties, or there's stuff out there that you just don't see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of shadow inventory right now, especially in Idaho. There's normally, so pre-COVID, there was about 100 to 150 homes in pre-foreclosure at any given time that were about to go to the courthouse steps.
That's the whole state?
Yeah, the whole state.
150.
Yeah. And right now the shadow inventory is at 6,000 because they have postponed it due to the moratorium. And I'm just talking Idaho. We're in a bunch of other states.
Right.
And who knows what's going to happen, just because a lot of people act like they know what's going to happen just because of 08 and things like that. But the reality is 08, there was a lot of bogus lending, and there's not the bogus lending that there was. And a chunk of those 6,000, probably 3,000 will get loan modifications. So the mortgage company will either take all the back payments that they are behind, and they'll put it on either the end of the loan plus, and that's all the interest, the attorney's fees, because the bank's going to make sure that they get their money.
Of course.
So they're either going to put it on the back end of the loan, or they're going to put a second against the property, so the person has a first and a second against it, and then they're going to go from there. But it just keeps growing. They're just kicking the ball down the road, essentially, and it's pretty wild to see everything that's been happening.
So do you work with the people that are in the foreclosure process? Yeah. And so what are you seeing? Is there any type of a trend or anything that's ticked up as to why these people are foreclosing?
The majority of them will say COVID, because if they say COVID, they can get more moratoriums.
Wow.
So that's common, but when we get down to the roots of it, I've just found typically people haven't been financially educated at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
what it is. It's people. We're helping somebody right now in Utah, and she's highly educated. She's a professor at the college, and this is her second time in foreclosure. She's educated in her space, and she can run circles around me
Right.
when it comes to her area. But financially, they just haven't been educated.
It's like rich dad, poor dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really the most common denominator. And then I would say the second piece of that is you tie that with victimhood, where it's woe is me. The world is out to get them. That kind of mentality.
Right, because victim
which is-
sends blame.
Yeah, which is a pretty low energy, a low frequency. So it takes a lot of empathy. Because I've been broke in my life. I think we all have.
Oh yeah.
I've been broke 3 times in my life, in a very, very bad space. So I can empathize with it. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around the victim piece of it.
Because you learned how to not, you learned from the pitfall, like, oh, I'm not going to do that again because being broke sucks. Instead of figuring out a solution, most people blame that's playing the victim.
Yeah.
So you're not seeing anything, because you mentioned like 2008 with bogus loans and things like that. You're not seeing like a main catalyst, or you're saying the main catalyst is just people's financial irresponsibility. They're not taught to win that game, so they're just making the same mistakes. Over leveraged, their house payments more than they can afford. And so now it's so crazy how many places are hiring and people aren't going out there trying to work or make money. So yeah, of course, you got a large nut to cover every month.
Just pull up to, there's a reason why when you drive through trailer parks, they have nicer vehicles probably than us.
Yeah.
It's priorities, and we helped a client in Nampa. She's in pre-foreclosure, about to lose her home, but she has a $60,000 Jeep in her driveway. And at the time, I was driving. I like nice vehicles, but my self-image is not tied to what I drive.
Yeah.
And I was driving an 09 Acura TL.
Yeah.
And I just pull up, and I'm going, this is. Again, it's crazy. One's an asset, one's a liability,
Right.
and you're putting all your money into those payments, but not this. So it's just backwards thinking, according to what I've been taught.
Right. And it goes up every line, be it a trailer park or middle class. They're just playing the same game. They just, one person's salary or income
Is a little more.
right. But it's still playing the same game. Like you're saying, most people are buying liabilities. They're not buying assets.
Here's the question with the Idaho market is, I was talking with a pretty well-known lender here, and she said there's still, inventory-wise, we're still under a month in most of the categories, which still makes it a seller's market. On top of that, she threw out the number, and I don't know where she's getting these stats, but that we're 10,000 homes short here in the valley. So
demand is still quite
how
high.
long is it going to take until
This bubble bursts.
Right.
Well, and to add on to that, nationally, I think, and I would have to look these numbers up. I saw it somewhere. I'll have to find it. But in 2011 to 2018, they were building like 20 to 28,000 homes a year. And last year, they only built 5.8 million homes nationwide. And I don't know if that's a resources deal or if it was just because of COVID, or you know what, or if it's people. Because I mean, I know it's impossible to find employees right now. I have a framer buddy that does all the Evans' houses and multifamily unit homes and their apartment complexes, and he's booked out till 2025. And he's like, I'd love to get more stuff done, but I can't find more guys to work for me. So I have to like book everything out years in advance.
Yeah, there's so many pieces to the puzzle that are just so weak that it's just like they're all culminating at this time and place. It's just wild to watch. Because for me, like, I've been tracking all this stuff since 2006. So for me, like, especially when it comes to inflation, like, that's what I've been just on a soapbox yelling is, man, the dollar is going to crash. But now it's like you have all these different plates that have been kept spinning, but they're like wobbling, and it's like, oh my gosh, what's it gonna be? So for me, I just like to have my finger on that pulse.
Well, the dollar has crashed.
It is crashing right now.
Look at when you take. I had a real estate friend call me, and he said, "How is it selling $1 million homes for how is it selling $500,000 homes for $1 million?" Essentially, what that's showing us, because that's all inflation is. It's just showing the weakening of the dollar.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, when someone the house or the gas it's neutral. The fluctuation in price is the value or the purchasing power of that dollar. So, man, that friend, I remember just a few years ago looking at some places on the bench, houses that were built like in the 1940s, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, going for like $200,000. I'm thinking, whoa, this is a ripoff.
Those houses now are like $500,000.
Exactly.
It's incredible. And with the dollar crashing thing, I mean, when you say, oh, the dollar's going to crash, you know, like the first thought that comes to mind perhaps is like, oh, you know, like literally the dollar crashes, it's not worth anything, and it's catastrophic kind of in our mind. But if you think about it, we're seeing it right now, and the way that it crashes is through this inflation, because, you know, to us it just seems like things are more expensive, but really it's just that the dollar is weaker,
right?
Which is kind of it's you know, over a period of time, while everybody's kind of waiting for this stock market crash, this huge thing, like literally it's happening as, you know, every day as this cycle continues, you know. I mean, just like the video that we watched the other day where the guy was going back 60 years and was showing the correlation between income, housing prices, and inflation. It's cyclical, and once you get above a certain percent, for the last 60 years at least, it's always been followed by a recession. And that was a question I was going to have for you. On the properties that you're working with, or the people that you're working with, what kind of level of property are you seeing? Are they all over the place? Are there really nice ones? Is it stuff in Boise? Is it out in the Nampa, Caldwell? What are you seeing with that?
Yeah, our main product, I would probably say, is between $300,000 and $400,000. We do have the every once in a while $800-900 million home. I will say this, and when I'm saying those homes, that's not ones that hit my computer. Those are people we're helping. So the ones that actually hit my computer, yes, there is definitely a slew of people that are in $7, $8, $9 million plus homes that look really good, but they've just been slammed financially. Because the reality is COVID has hit so many markets in a way that nobody really could have guessed it.
Right. Yes.
And what's funny is, being in real estate for 20 years, you know this, I find it funny that someone spends, 80 hours, 100 hours getting their license. And I was getting my haircut today, and he said he spent 1,500 hours getting his license to cut hair. Right. And I'm going, when are they going to raise the bar for agents to put in more hours, because these are people's biggest financial assets, and every agent thinks they're a total hotshot right now because the market is crazy right now. And you've seen this because I got into the market in 2010. So you rode that market, and I got in nearing the bottom of that market. But it's funny how people feel like I'm so good, and it's like, no, the market just is exposing what's going on, and as we see things shift and change, you're probably going to watch half the realtors quit.
Yeah, it's like,
would you agree?
Yeah, that's what happened in 2000, and it really kind of shut off in 2007, but it was identical to what it is right now. You list it, you can just name your price. The lending products back then there was some interesting stuff for sure, but the thing that's an interesting correlate or parallel to that today is due to just the laxing of the mortgage requirement guidelines and stuff, people can get a conventional loan for like 3% down. So that's a pretty risky loan in the grand scheme of things, and FHA as well. But what they do is they just tack on mortgage insurance to that, which is an additional cost.
Now for the life of the loan.
Yeah.
Well, and also another thing that people need to think about too. I'm on the construction side, so I do remodels, and I'd probably say I handle like 4 to 6 appointments a day. And I'd probably say 50% of those people have bought in their house within the last 5 years.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, we were told we just need our roof redone. And it's like, we got a quote for $7,000. I'm like, well, I don't know who you guys got a quote from $7,000. And they're like, oh, our real estate agent said it was going to be $7,000. And I'm like, oh, well.
Leslie said that.
Yeah, Leslie said that. And just so you know, it's like you guys live in Plantation, so you have to have a presidential shingle, and it's going to be like $42,000, you know. And then there's like, what?
Yeah.
And they already are like, they don't have any
Their
fun.
budget is
Yeah,
$7,000.
nobody in homes right now is having a good time. Like everybody my age that is buying houses, that are like having kids, all my friends. Like I have friends that have $2,800 a month mortgages, and they like, you know, are rolling $100K in credit card debt into their mortgage because it's a lower interest rate.
Oh my
because
gosh.
like they're living outside of their means as far as
So-
they live in a house, but they still want to go on vacations every year, and they still have to have the coolest clothes. And
So that's the thing. So this is the crazy thing. Seeing it and going through it. I went through it, and I took it all on the chin. Like I was the hot shot realtor. I was like 25 years old. I was making like $150,000. In Oregon, you had to do 300 hours of education or whatever to get your license.
Thank God.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I mean, whatever it took, it was the most money you could make, and it was just. The practices were similar to what they are now, like the ability to roll all this debt in, the ability to put such a low down payment, to get these crazy seconds where you know, people are able to purchase this. But the difference between back then and the big difference now is interest rates back then were like 5.5–6%, and now for so long they've been 2.5–3%. I mean, you could get an investment property with 20% down recently for like 3 3/4, like 4% on an investment property, which is really low. So the inflation is even greater than I think in 2008. And even though maybe they don't have the no document loans, the stated income loans, the adjustable rate mortgages like they did back then, they have other products now that are allowing people to basically, the lending has to be able to lend to buy these houses. Like it all has to work together. You can't have one without the other.
Right.
And so as these rates tick up, I think that's going to be the really big catalyst that's going to change. I don't think they have to go up much, because the difference between 2.5% and 4% on a $500,000–$600,000 house is dramatic.
Right.
Where actually it really should be at like 6%, 5.5%. That should really be the. So that price would have to match a 5.5% interest rate, you know. So there's a lot of fat in there, and
I have updated numbers, what we were talking about earlier. So nationwide, pre-2010, so that century pre-2010, averaged 14.5 million homes a year built in the United States. In 2010 to 2020, we averaged 6.9 million homes a year.
So supplies going down.
Supplies
demand's
going down.
up.
Yeah, exactly. And then last year it was like 5.5 or 5.8 million homes built in the United States last year. So more people are moving here, and then less houses are being built. So
I think it's important to realize too that we can look at national averages like that, but we all live in micro markets.
Right.
So that's why it's important to have a professional where they know the market, they understand what's going on, because just because something is happening in Manhattan doesn't mean that it's happening in Boise, Idaho.
Right. Right.
yeah, and that's an interesting thing with the building here. So like basically all of Boise, like the city of Boise, there's really no new construction land left to access. There's some stuff out south, but they're running into some issues out there with infrastructure, with sewer and water and whatnot. And then you have basically once you get out to Lake Hazel, south of Lake Hazel, you run into the giant Butte Mountain right there. You know, where you go up Pleasant Valley Road.
Yep.
I mean, you can't build out there.
Right.
It would be a dramatic scenario to get all of your infrastructure out there. So in Boise, really the only amount of homes that are going to be sold are people who are leaving the area, like resale homes.
Right.
And that's going to be an interesting thing too, because even with an interest rate rise, if you've got a limited supply of homes that will ever be or fairly close to, that could help keep the prices up in that type of a scenario, or at least retain value. And even out in Meridian, I mean, anymore now, you have to go clear out to Nampa and even Caldwell for like new construction.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty nuts. Now the question would be, if the prices come down, will more land become available? And that'll be interesting to see with these foreclosures and stuff. Like, is this going to be kind of a tapered off effect, or is it going to be a big drop?
I mean, it's nobody knows. Nobody has that crystal ball.
No,
you know
I
what
wish
I
I did.
think see coming is the whole thing at its foundation is a racket. Like, it's a pure racket.
Yeah.
It's a Ponzi scheme. The dollar is a Ponzi scheme. The mortgage is a Ponzi scheme. It's all a Ponzi scheme. And so what we're seeing is it's not only are its cracks exposed, but now it's like crumbling. Mm-hmm. And so what they're doing is they're just, like you said, kicking the ball down the road, but eventually the whole scheme is going to come to an end. So it's like, what bubble pops first? It's almost inconsequential. It doesn't really matter. You just have to see that the whole thing, it's coming down.
Would you elaborate on Ponzi scheme so I understand what you mean by that?
Well,
when
the
it comes to
dollar
mortgage?
system in and of itself is a Ponzi scheme. So the people at the top, the wealthy people, they're just collecting all this money in the form of interest at the very top with the Federal Reserve. Like, it's built into the simple math of the dollar, that it's going to go to zero. You cannot continue to create something out of nothing with no backing, with no fundamental value, and expect it to maintain value or purchasing power over time. That is a Ponzi scheme. And so now with government in over-regulation, in over-fees, in over-taxation, that's how they keep the scheme going. Like, at the top, like, look at these people that are in Congress, congressmen and women. I mean, it's all just a scheme. And now the whole system has become so corrupt that it's only a matter of time before it is already imploding, but it's going to crash entirely.
You know, the scariest thing I read this morning was that they're going to get into our reserves of 180 million gallons of gasoline to kind of lower the price of gas. But a lot of people don't know this, but our dollar is based off of our reserves for gasoline.
Oh, yeah.
And we had, pre this 180 million gallons, we had the most reserves. Like, I think Saudi Arabia was second with like 220 billion, gallons of gas, basically. But our reserves is what made us the main dollar, right? So we have the most gas, so we're the most important country because we have something like 300 trillion barrels of gas or something like that. But we're about to hand out 180 million of those 300 trillion, which is barely probably going to put a dent. But it's still scary to see what that's going to do to our dollar, because that's what our dollar is backed by, our reserves.
Well, now getting into geopolitical, I mean, yeah, the whole thing is...
To elaborate on your Ponzi scheme thing, though, to see it from a more local or just a general perspective, even what we're talking about with the housing market, and if you... the houses can only be priced high enough that they can actually figure out
it's a
loan
very
amount.
Yes,
and so one adjusts the other. Again, for that business to continue to flourish, it has to auto regulate, and I guess the thing is, if we look at the historical nature of it, very rarely does it ever just kind of trickle down and come down. The bubble comes down in a nice way, and kind of levels out, and we find this harmonious balance between prices of things and whatnot, and especially since just the huge changes in our economy and how we produce things. But that kind of in itself is a Ponzi scheme. I mean, if you think about it, you have to have people
buying at the bottom.
Well, you have to have people taking out loans.
Right.
Those people taking out loans have to buy houses. Therefore, you have to build more houses, which takes more people getting loans. And if any of that slows down, I think kind of the expectation we have is that the economy will grow forever. I guess that we've kind of come to adopt is the economy will just continue to grow forever until it doesn't, and when it doesn't, it's catastrophic. Like, that in itself is a really bad cyclical thing, and just the expectation of that, and capitalism You know, like that, like they all work together. Like capitalism has
Right.
to have people consume.
Right.
You have to consume. At no point in capitalism can people stop consuming.
They're symbiotic.
Yeah, if they stop consuming, or consuming as much as they are, it fails. Capitalism fails, and we see these big, you know, resets. Now it catches at the bottom. We haven't seen a complete collapse of it, and it's gone away, and we're not capitalists anymore, or even practice that. But you'd think that maybe over time we'd, you know, somehow develop some type of a more empathetic, capitalistic
Bitcoin.
I think that's what we
environment.
will.
Yeah.
That's what we're evolving into.
Yeah.
But
And I think even capitalism, the consciousness behind capitalism is just like a stepping stone in our conscious evolution.
right.
And so many lessons are to be learned going through the last couple hundred years of the rise and potential fall of capitalism. And I believe that we always will learn those lessons so we can just develop a better system next time.
Right. So so hopefully, which, if you know, it doesn't get good rap, and if you talk about it from a capitalist point of view, it's looked down almost with weakness. But to move from like competition, which is capitalism,
Right.
you're competing for resources, for goods, for market shares, to cooperation,
Right.
which generally in our sense, when you cooperate financially, you know, there's not a lot of money to be made, or you're not making the money.
Right.
And so that will be the big question.
Paradigm shift.
Shift is
Yeah.
how can you still maintain your quality of living
I saw a
in
big,
a cooperative way.
I saw a big
Right.
light bulb over here. What went off? While
I think competition is such a archaic way to operate. It reminds me of me in my 20s, where it was like, if you won, that meant I lost.
Right.
Versus, I would say, collaboration,
Yeah.
where truly a belief system that collectively we're better together than we are on an individual basis. I just look at what Elon Musk did. Some people think he's an alien, and you think he created, whether you agree with the companies he's created or not, he created it with his own blood, sweat, and tears, and then he gave the system to all the other car manufacturers.
Right.
He gave
open
it.
source.
It would be like agents collabing together and saying, this is my number one marketing piece. Because if, first off, 98% of people aren't even going to use it.
Right.
So don't be fearful
Dang,
that you
that's a good
you
point.
can't tell them your secrets, because
Right.
they're not going to use it anyways. And the 2% that will are going to sharpen your sword to make you better. And you're constantly going to be evolving and creating better systems, better models. And by the time the person that you gave your system to catches on to that system, you've already evolved into something completely different.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that
Yeah.
process is speeding up faster and faster. I mean, even in real estate, from 20 years from what it was in 20 years ago, not to bring in the technology.
Didn't you have listings in a phone book or something like that? Or
Yeah, no, I mean, the technology has, we went from not even having scanners and everything was a fax machine to, I mean, I can scan something. I can write a contract on my phone right now and send it to 4 different people and have them sign it and come right back. Like, that's changed the game in itself. But that evolution process is getting faster. So, that'll be really the thing to see, because this old system, I believe the capitalist system, the competition system is still is in full force in a national geopolitical level. I mean, all countries look at Russia and us and the whole world right now, just because of the way that our, the resources are hoarded, and then one person has this stuff, one person has that stuff. And so to change that, we'll see. I mean, that's what the hope would be.
I think the people that are just running the show, we just have to wait for them to die. Like, that's really, because look at it like this, like, our bodies are the hardware. Okay, so if you've got someone, let's say like a Joe Biden or a Putin, that were born pre-1950, their hardware can only support a limited amount of the cosmic software uploads that are flowing through the universe, not to get too woo-woo. So their belief systems, their fundamental programming that runs their biocomputer is set. In fact, they've got what's called psychosclerosis, a hardening of the beliefs. So no matter what,
You could just call it narcissistic.
okay, or
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
But to your point, actually to both of you guys, competition is a reflection of a consciousness that we are evolving out of, and that we're evolving into a new consciousness of abundance. And so you've got someone like Elon Musk that, man, when you talk about sharing or making those plans open source, that is literally the definition of someone who's in abundance. Like, hey, I'm not afraid of competition. And now look, his net worth would show he's very much in the flow of abundance.
Totally. They say he's going to be the first trillionaire in like the next 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
To what you were saying is, and this goes to sovereign individual, is that we are at the end. Competition, that I don't look at as like capitalism, competition, like it's not bad things. It's gotten us to where we are right here and now, but now it's just they're obsolete operating systems. So to expect the system to change because the system is being run by dinosaurs that are running on old hardware, those people will never adopt empathy. So we what does he say? Forgive them for they know not what they do. So what we have to do is we just have to wait for them to die. They're going to die. They're going to start dying fast because that's just the name of the game. The average congressman's over the age of 75. The average federal worker's over the age of 55. So there's more people leaving the empire than are going in. The empire's number one tool that they have to stay in power, the dollar, is crashing in an exponential rate. But what they do have at their disposal is the media. So they can put anything they want on the propaganda machine to make you think everything's great over here at the empire. Stay in line, motherfucker. Pay your taxes or we're gonna kill you. This, that, or the other. But really behind the scenes, just like in the Wizard of Oz, you got some little punk ass dude, they're just, again, forgive them for they know not what they do. They're so out of touch with where consciousness has gone now. And that's why you see like the millennials and the younger people, they're really upset because they're living in a world that they're just like, this sucks.
If you think about it that way, their software isn't designed for that. So it's a complete, if you have two pieces of software, like the old people's software is designed for the competition. And
exactly.
And this is not. So there's a catalyst coming where, and really the thing that's going to make that is time on their side because the old people are dying.
Exactly right. And this goes even to the Fourth Turning. God, pulling up a lot of great books. But like, remember, capitalism isn't that old.
No.
And what we're seeing is like only within like 4 generations have we seen the rise and fall of the experiment.
To go to the sovereign individual, with when they talk a lot about chivalry in there,
right?
How that was all through the Middle Ages.
How wild.
And that was a 600-year period roughly where government was run a completely different way, and the people just through elevation of consciousness, but it was there was strife within it. They just basically said, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to come to your aid. We're not going to honor our oaths anymore to come and do these things for you because we don't need to.
And that's what's happening right now, like a big movement right now that I've been involved in forever, is just people understanding how the game is really ran, like how taxes really work, how law really works, how the government really works, and again, how it's just a racket. It's a scheme that's based on consent. That's why a con game is you have to get people to have confidence in the scheme. So they've had a monopoly on the scheme. And they just conned everybody into believing it. Once everybody just won with crypto nowadays, just stop using their money. Just stop using it. It's that easy.
Well, and think about smart contracts.
It's all just stop contracting with them. Like that's
a new version of contracts.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, like the forms we use to sell real estate are state licensed. You have to use those. Everyone uses those. But really, if you think about it, it's like, well, why? So why do I have to use this contract with this verbiage? Like, what if I wanted to sell my house and just do a different contract
and use my own?
Yeah, and not even tell you about it or have to
all
this stuff. And people are realizing Yeah, I don't have to. I can do this.
So
a different
I have
way.
a question about that. So FHA loans, they went up to like 500,000 this year or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Do you know the number? What it
I
was?
don't know the exact number, but
Okay.
everything's maxed as high as it's
Yeah.
ever been. Really.
And so builders went from, because it was like 4 something last year, and that's where most builders like Corey Barton and stuff were selling their homes at, because that's what they get approved with new home buyers. Well, now that number just jumped to like 500 something. So basically, the government is the one adjusting these prices.
Well,
it's kind of how I feel. But I mean, you probably know more about that.
Well, yeah, but just because, I mean, that's another piece of the Ponzi scheme, just a small piece of it on the builder side, because just because Corey Barton can charge more because the loan is higher doesn't mean that they're making more. It's all relative. So just because they're making more, now the builders are charging more. Now the wood manufacturers are charging more. So it all mirrors each other.
Totally, and I understand that. I'm just saying, like, the FHA, that's the government, right? Like, and they're adjusting these prices with the inflation, right? Is that where they're getting these numbers for?
No,
so
they're getting these. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, new home buyers can purchase these homes.
Exactly, because the cost of things continue to go up, and you have to have people making new loans, and the biggest number of people, the hugest market is first-time home buyers and younger people buying homes. It's not mid-range buyers or the elite buyers. Those are a really small portion of it. So that huge market, the FHA is probably one of the junkiest lenders in the world. Like, if you think about credit and bonded like assets that they make these loans on, I mean, they'll loan $550,000 to somebody who works at Lowe's, and maybe the other person's a part-time teacher.
Lowe's is giving out some good increases in their pay.
Nothing to say anything. I'm just saying.
But they have to.
They're making 50,
Everybody
60,
has to keep the schema going.
right. So they're making $50,000-$60,000 a year, and they're borrowing $60,000 or $500,000 for 3% down, and it's the only reason that loan has a low rate. That loan should really have, like, if it was just on the open market, who knows, 10-15%, like, because it's government backed. They can make that loan affordable because the interest rate's super small. So that's actually a really shitty asset if you're going to go sell that to somebody. Like, hey, I have this really highly leveraged person. So it's an interesting concept to see, because that part of the facade has always been, it's a government-backed loan. Like, this is solid as it gets.
And this is just one thing that I noticed in the car market is they went from, like, a standard loan was like 5 or 6 years, right? And then all of a sudden they were doing like 8 and 10-year loans. Oh, yeah. Do you guys foresee them to do that with home loans, extend them out so that those monthly payments can go down?
Yeah, they got like 45-year loans now.
You can probably get a mortgage for any length of time you possibly want. I think what they do or would do and have done is come up with gimmicks for the 30-year mortgage, because the lenders want to recover that money as fast as they can. So even if you charge a higher rate but spread it out over 50 years, you're recovering a smaller amount of money. And the longer the time period, the more chances that loan's never going to come to fruition, or it could foreclose, or something could happen. So I've never seen really any lengthier product be in the market, but definitely interest only, adjustable rate mortgages, seconds, freaking all kinds of different programs to modify the loan to make it fit, to make it work.
Yeah. What do you see as far as like that goes? Like, when you guys are doing these, because you said about half of those numbers are going to get some sort of assistance. Like, do you foresee that being some sort of assistance for them, is like extending it out longer, or?
Could be, but I think it would be all speculation. I don't know. I mean, mortgage companies, they're going to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that's part of the Ponzi scheme, again, that's driven this whole thing. Like, imagine if there wasn't any real modification. Like, who says there should be modifications and assistance to people who fucked up? Like,
they have to create it to keep the thing
that's
going.
what I'm saying. But if you really wanted to fix it, that's the kind of shit where the capitalistic approach or could possibly work if there was that. You can't have that with this other thing of, well, we're going to bail people out, we're going to help them fix their mistakes. Like, that adds to this victim mentality over generations, where people now expect anytime there's a snowstorm, where's the fucking government? Why aren't they out here plowing our roads? I'm sitting in my car freezing my ass off in Virginia because I'm not prepared for anything. And now the government needs, and everybody's mad about that. And it's become this thing where we expect it. And so that's got to change too, because if people weren't getting bailed out and you had to put, 20% down to buy a house, the assets that were, that would be a good loan. That would be something that people would want to buy, but it's not anymore. And that's the norm. So it's a shitty product.
And that goes back to what you were saying earlier. It comes down to a simple education. It's often boggled my mind that if you wanted to be the best, you would start teaching people from the beginning the best. So money is, I would say, one of the most important areas as a human being. And so the fact that they're not teaching kids about money and how to manage money, how to create wealth, that to me is just mind-boggling.
Well, just in that very statement, that you think it's going to come down to us.
Right.
And that's the crypto movement now. The education that we've received since we've met you in cryptocurrency in the past 3 or 4 years has superseded any knowledge of regular finance. And then the dichotomy between the two is you can see how, which again, you've exposed us to with the trust shit, like this fiat system, nobody chose. It wasn't like they said in high school, hey, do you want to operate on your own?
Right.
Do you want to know, or do you just want to...
Do you want to be public or private?
Yeah, or do you want us to just give you some money and you can go out and figure it out, and they have to... And I mean, even if you look in school, like when I went to school, in high school, right as I went into high school, they made personal finance not a requirement. And if you think, well, why would someone do that? Well, wouldn't want someone to learn about APRs and credit cards and mortgages and shit, because you literally need that person not to know to actually participate in it.
And what kid at 16 is going to choose personal finance over AP tumbling?
Yeah, or shop class or home ec or something, Yeah. That's it. And I didn't.
I'll do some backflips with some hot chicks.
Yeah, and I didn't. I mean, that wasn't anything I was going to then, but if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Like that has to be. So it'll come down to, like crypto, it'll come down to grassroots, and that was in the sovereign individual too, where eventually people will move away. They'll be united as a community through cooperation, but they're also going to be, everybody's going to be local and smaller sourced. Like that will be the way people go, because when you have just a small number of people ruling 97% of the rest of them, it's just bound to fail.
Right, 100%.
Yeah. Do you guys think that if they did teach these things in school, that kids would be better off? Because I feel like I myself still wouldn't have listened to anybody until I was like ready to listen, right? Like I didn't start moving forward until like I personally was in a spot, and I don't know if it was like trauma or, whatever. But I mean, in high school, I was great at taking tests, because I have a pretty good memory. So if like somebody one time told me that an ostrich ran at 36 miles an hour, I could remember that and be like, oh yeah, it's right here, But I think it's like 32 miles an hour, by the way. But anyways, that doesn't matter. It's I wasn't ready to learn until I was almost like probably 28 or 30. You know what I mean?
I think it's the parents' job to unschool their kids.
Gotcha.
I think, yes, education is important, obviously.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think that's why a lot of people don't talk about parenting.
Right.
Like you said, hey, finances is really important. I agree. And I would say communication, parenting, health,
yes,
those kinds of things, where when we unschool our kids and how they've been programmed, that really should be, they're our offspring. That should be some of the closest, most important relationship that we have. So if they hear something that's whack and out there and they bring it home and they communicate with us about it, we should have the relationship with them that we unschool them and teach them a higher level thought process.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts, is the home.
I'm right there with you. In fact, dealing with that myself, having Noah in first grade, this year really shined a light on the system, because I pull Noah out Tuesdays and Thursdays. I pull him out a half hour early to go to jiu-jitsu, and the teacher really, they find it very inconvenient, or what I found is when he leaves, they have to mark him tardy, so that reflects on the teacher and on the system. So they're always, so I had my first parent-teacher conference, and the teacher was really just, Noah's failure in class or school based on their standards is because I'm pulling him out an hour early total for the week when he's there. So what I did is I quantified the whole thing. So, okay, he's there 7 hours
Noah sounds like a serial killer.
7 hours a day. And I was frustrated too because like he's not like learning to read. He's not picking these things up. So I'm like, okay, where's like the flaw at? So I quantify it thinking, oh, he's there 35 hours a week. He's 7 years old. He's got a full-time job. And his full-time job is something he hates. He doesn't like doing the work. He's not engaged. He's not excited. So then when I look at that, I'm like, it's not. It's
And maybe some of his teachers suck.
That's the biggest. Because I worked there for a minute, and I would like, I'm saying hey to everybody. Like, I love my life. Like, I'm having fun. They all, like your shirt, grimace on their face. So like, they're not pumped to be there. And so I'm putting this together. Then recently, so I tell her on parent-teacher conference, like, hey, I just want you to know is that I don't care what your guys' report cards say. I never will. I never showed my parents a report card. In fact, my parents are the ones that told me to drop out of school. So for me, and I've told this to Noah, I'm very upfront. You need to learn to read. You need to learn to write. You need to learn basic math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Other than that, dude, as long as you don't get in trouble, I don't care what you do. And so I explained this to the teacher. And then, to your point, just a few weeks ago, I'm like, Noah, dude, you got so much unfinished homework. Are you doing these worksheets in class? And he goes, no. And I'm like, oh, there's the problem. You're going there 35 hours a week. What are you doing? He's like, I'm looking around. I'm talking to my friends. And I go, is it because you know if you don't do this work at school, nobody's going to do anything to you? And he goes, yeah. So the teacher, it's not an engaging environment. They're saying, hey, just do this work. And then if you don't do it, you have to do it at home. So it's just kicking the ball down the road. And what I found with that system is that the system and the players within it, they don't take responsibility. They're mitigating it on the child or the parent. Your child isn't within our standards based on a test, so it has to be the child or it's you guys. It's not our system. So it was just, again, like, and that's the foundation of a person, especially, in Western cultures. School, you're going to school, and based on how you do in school is going to determine how you're going to do in life. But to your point, Clinton, is it comes back to the parent. Like, they work for me, and the job there is learning to read, learning to write, learning to do math. So everything else comes down.
Unless they're going to be in a specialized position, like a doctor or something like that.
You're going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
But I already know that kid ain't going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
He's a musician. He's an artist. Like, that's his brain. So.
Well, and we've talked about this before, but I feel like even in my case, because I was never like good at drawing, right? Like, I couldn't draw. Like, some people are just naturally good at drawing. But I remember I took an art class and my teacher was like, you can't draw a sunflower, you fucking suck at art. And I was like, oh, okay. I fucking hate art. And I went home and I remember I was like, Mom, I can't draw a sunflower. I fucking hate art. And my mom was like, oh, okay. Tight. And then I was like, I'm good at sports, so that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
And to me, I just like canceled out art. Now, like within the last couple of years, like I love doing art, like making art pieces. And I'm not drawing sunflowers, you know what I mean? I'm just like putting stuff together on these canvases that like my hands just move that way. And I love doing it. And I think it looks cool and I don't really give a shit what anybody else thinks. Yeah. But like that is actually art, Whereas like this lady made me feel like because I couldn't draw a fucking sunflower, I was the worst artist on the planet.
You're not creative, right?
Yeah. Art's not your thing.
I think that's a part of, again, this consciousness that we are evolving into is I think we're evolving into a renaissance because I do. I think that be it the dollar, crypto, whatever it is, they're stepping stones.
NFTs now.
We're going to evolve out of it. We'll evolve out of money. When you really get into abundance, we'll realize that, it really was a scam. And that we really can all exist on this planet in abundance. Like Elon Musk, even if he tried his damnedest, he couldn't spend all that money. So I think when we get to these levels, people will realize, by hoarding all this money, like it really didn't make me feel any different, feel any better.
No, you've got to do that right now because it's been, the rule written in the Matrix, the rule in this level of it. But just like with the education thing, I mean, COVID really brought it to a catalyst that, for the longest time we just committed our children to this process, and it worked for the parameter that it needed to work for a while. But there's been this schism, or maybe it's just the downloading of new information, but there's a schism between people now. And like you said, with the teachers, like that don't want to work, that don't do these things. Though, I think that those people, a lot of them want to do the best job they can, but within their own,
they're in a lane. They cannot get out of that lane.
They're having policy made for them that's getting shittier and shittier. And so, I mean, you see the movement now. People are taking kids. Everybody homeschools now.
Right.
And I mean, it's really an interesting thing because people are actually kind of questioning, like, well, why do I send my kid to school? What is the other option? Is there one? Where before there was never even a question. Like, no one even questioned that.
Point.
Like, you weren't like, my kid's not going to go to school. Like, very, 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 very few kids that we all ever grew up with didn't go to school. Like, that was just a thing. And with that being said,
if they were homeschooled, actually.
It was. And with that being said, the occupation thing is a key factor in that. You have to have kids going to school for 8 hours a day so the fucking parents can go to work.
Right.
Yeah, it's a daycare.
Right. So right now we're seeing people realizing that they can survive or maintain without going to these jobs as much as they were, and all of a sudden they're like, what are you getting taught at school? What kind of shit's going on? Like, whoa, wait a minute here, wait a minute, let's do something different.
It wasn't that long ago that we were even in school, like on a scale wise.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember the weirdest shit happening. Like looking back, I'm like, I can't believe that this happened to me at school, right? Like having to ask to go to the bathroom.
Oh my
Dude,
gosh!
that is the weirdest fucking thing.
Yeah,
it's the weirdest thing, and it's like, I understand that there's gonna be like some kids that are like just going in there to goof off or whatever, right? But overall, like I remember a kid in 4th grade peeing his pants because the teacher wouldn't let him go to the bathroom.
Man. Or just being afraid to ask.
Yeah, and then he was crying about it.
Right.
And the teacher
beat him up.
Trauma. And then you get trauma.
Yeah, and then the teacher asked was like, "What's wrong with you? Why would you pee your pants?"
Right.
Like, and he's like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, he peed his fucking pants because you wouldn't let him go pee,
Yeah, man.
But it was like everyone else's fault but hers, and I don't know. Like, I remember teachers crying. One time a teacher left her computer open to like a Match.com thing, and like every kid was ripping on her about it, and she's like crying.
Boy.
When I was in school, they didn't even have. When I was in elementary school, nobody even had a computer. There wasn't a computer in the school.
It's crazy to me that. And I remember a lot of them. Like I used to get kicked out of my AP government class all the time because I would argue with the teacher.
You see that? He's flexing AP.
AP. Nice.
Dude, I was not. I am really good at taking tests, but I am horrible at doing assignments. Like, if you need me to do something on my free time, it's not going to get done. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm about.
Yeah, the only thing that's going to get done is, like, if you give me a multiple choice test, I'm going to crack it. If you give me a regular test, I'm probably going to crack it. But, yeah.
I think it's a parent's job to put their children in positions that will help them become their best self.
Me too.
And I think that something that April and I did is Hannah's gone to 2 private schools, and this second one, it just again it's starts at 8 a.m. and goes until 3:30 p.m. aka daycare. And I have so many conversations with her on, why do I have to learn this? And I go, because it's the system.
Because I did.
And so, yeah, but that's such a shitty answer.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And it's like, I know, honey, because we tell her teachers the exact same thing. We don't care about the grades. the only thing that I would add to that is as long as you try your hardest,
Right.
and you can say, you know
That's
what,
what I found.
I put my effort into that, because I think effort can go a long ways, whether you're building a company, whatever that is, perseverance.
Yeah.
And so she's now applied to this online private education, as she puts it, because her dad's convinced that homeschoolers are weirdos, and I've explained, no, homeschoolers are not weirdos. The parents are weirdos, and they've imparted that onto their children.
Mm-hmm.
So, and some of these online education platforms, $40,000 to $60,000 a year for a 12-year-old. No joke.
That'll change
The one that she is applying for,
How old is she? I'm sorry.
she's 12.
Okay. Oh, you just said that.
The one that she's applying for, they don't do any tests, no tests at all. And I think that was one of the things, because she gets test anxiety. I was horrible at tests.
Oh, gotcha.
I sat next to the kid that was incredible at tests, and every time he'd look over, Joe, you know who you are. Freaking Joe. And he'd be like, what'd you get? And I'd be like, C. So,
But you did all the assignments.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm the same, dude. I'll show up to a test. I'm feeling good. And at the end of the day, it's like, I don't care. What?
Yeah.
I don't care.
but I
Yeah.
think it comes
Great
back.
guesser.
Why do really
Yes.
wealthy people send their children to super expensive schools? The connections,
Oh, absolutely.
the networking, the experiences, and it's our job to, going back to financial education, to create financial abundance in our life so we can provide those opportunities. I'm not saying spoil them, but provide opportunities for them,
Yeah.
because I think every single one of us has one or two things we are damn good at. And imagine if our parents would have had the financial abundance to put us in that environment, we'd probably be in Dubai at the top of the Burj Hotel right now, having this conversation. And I'm not even just talking about the monetary piece. I'm talking about our mindset. I'm talking about a lot of different things, because of what could have came from that would have been pretty incredible.
Well, and I think that's going to be the future, because the evolution, the consciousness is changing right now.
Do you have kids?
I do. I have a little one. He's not in school yet. He's almost 2, and then another one on the way.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this, like my sister has kids that are
You
6.
just
and-
jumped in the game.
Yeah, and so I'm seeing by the time he gets to school age, I'm really excited to see what kind of options there's going to be, because for all of us, it was only public school for the most part. And yeah, I mean, we all went through this. I learned English. I hated English. I was reading freaking,
Oh, me too. Still don't know how to use a comma.
Well, I didn't learn any of
Yeah.
that, but
Every time you breathe, Gary.
Comma.
yeah, so it'll be interesting to see as people continue to have more free time and realize that the responsibility is actually the joy of your children, of being able to teach them and watch them and spend time with them. And we've traded that for, it's a big question, is for this materialistic stuff. Like, the reason that we don't spend time with our children is because we are working. Why are we working? So that we can pay the fucking bills. And people are realizing, hey, I'm never going to get ahead. Like, this isn't working out.
I can't win this game.
Yeah. And, and you're seeing people say, hey, I'm over even if they wanted to pay those mortgages and stuff, like, they just, like, after you kind of get some education, like, I'm going to do this for 30 years. Like, wait a minute, even 10 years. I mean, nobody keeps a loan for 30 years, but, yeah, people are just waking up to that and seeing that. And, as you always say, there'll be a large portion of people who will die, whether you call it physical or just basically evolution death. And there's going to be the people who get it, who are like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I don't have to go with these norms anymore.
Right.
And we'll see how that shakes out. It'll be really interesting.
I mean, that's where we are. We are literally watching the end days of Rome. I mean, as we go through it, like, this, humans are weird, that, what's that saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. So, like, they're just up and down cycles. So that's even like today, getting you guys together and talking about, like, 07, 08, because I remember being a hot market, Salt Lake City. I remember the same thing. So I'm trying to, as an investor, I'm always trying to find different tea leaves or crystal balls that I can use to kind of tell, okay, where are we at? Because there's so many different cycles. There's the real estate, there's equities, there's crypto, there's bonds, like, there's so many, there's currencies. And again, all of these things are kind of at this precipice of something major has to happen. I think that more than ever, man, I really want to even do a video, just go downtown and, you know, take a survey. Is out of all of you guys, do you guys feel like something big is going to happen? Like in the future, I'm talking a paradigm shift, something that stops the whole planet, stops in that moment to be like, oh shit, something. You guys all feel that?
Well, I mean, shit, they just told everybody that aliens were real and we were right. The whole, like, all the conspiracy theorists were real, and no one, like, there's like no one freaking out about that. No one, like, even tripped. They were just like, oh yeah, we
it's
knew
almost
that.
like we've been conditioned to not freak out because of media.
Yeah.
It's kind of really cocky to act like out of 10,000 galaxies plus that we're the only living species out there. Like, come on, guys.
But that's also just how good conditioning works.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, we think the Earth is round. I mean, what the hell's going on here? I just listened to a podcast about that.
Flat earthing?
My dad worked for Satellite Command for the United States Air Force, and stared at a lot of satellites and drove them around and was like a satellite pilot. And the Earth is definitely round.
Yeah. Honestly, you know what? I think, I mean, it's. I don't think it really even matters. I think
it doesn't
what it really
matter.
matters is just.
Well, it does. If you're going to international travel, you need to stay safe.
That is true. That is
But-
true. Or if you're gonna,
I'm looking out for you.
yeah, or if you're going to be an astronaut, you want to make sure you shoot off into the world.
Galactic.
But is the moon hollow? That's the real question.
Oh my
I
gosh,
think
yeah.
last night I went for a walk, man, and I was it was really nice wind. It was right at sunset. It was kind of, you know, brisk and cool, and I could feel, like, literally could feel like the energy of just like the land, the earth, the wind, everything that's going on around it. And if you think about the dynamic forces that we live in every day that we just aren't even aware of, like how magical that shit is, like anything is possible to change. I mean, or just a constant pushing towards, you know, a higher vibration. And I think people are waking up to that, and it could still cycle. I mean, we've had these cycles before. I mean, these consciousness evolutions have happened in a microcosm and a macrocosm. So to think that if we suffer another financial collapse or whatever, that it won't do it again in another 20 years, it might be a lot more different, because this one is by far different than 2008, but yet it's the same. It's the same.
The feeling is in the air. The same feeling as
right, but we're dealing with the same thing. We're dealing with the real estate market. We're dealing with an inflated dollar. So just because it crashes this time doesn't mean I don't know if the dollar is going to go away. I don't know if the U.S. is going to go away. It may do it again. But personally, the knowledge that I've gained from 2008 to now is hopefully helping me, and this is the knowledge part, to position myself in a different way than the masses of people who are uneducated and are going to, and not through any fault of their own per se, and are going to take this on the chin.
Oh yeah, like getting tumbled in a wave.
Yeah.
I'm most excited for lightsabers. I know they're getting pretty close. I was watching something on lasers the other day, and like they're
That's like every kid's childhood
Dude,
dream right
there.
there.
Man, yeah, the future. That's
like
all I
all
care
of your
about.
faces
Yeah.
were just like, lightsabers.
Dude, as soon as, because I mean, like what you said, I know something big is coming, and the thing that people don't realize is like what happens after something big happens, right? Like you got all of these dope houses. I'm just going to go plant my flag in front of one of these houses, and now it's going to be my house, and I'm going to do it with my lightsaber, you know?
I'm not coming up there for cash for keys with you unless I got my own lightsaber too.
Yeah, bringing my lightsaber, and this is going to be my house, and everybody wants to mess with me.
I think the big thing, I
lightsaber.
don't know if aliens would even really be a huge shock unless they came down and like put us all in
a mothership or something, like
I think
wild.
The big breakthrough that I think could happen here is going to be with energy. I think that there's going to be a catalyst in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years where we find out that, like what the ancients knew, that there's an energy force that's abundant, that's created by the earth, and that we can power all of our shit off of that, and we don't need fucking gasoline and oil anymore. And that, which I think that could be that would change.
Well, they're building their own sun in China, and that's supposed to go towards powering like their cities and stuff like that.
I think there's energy that just is naturally created.
Yeah, you don't need to create it.
That's magnetic energy. That's here already, and that's going to be the big secret. Is that, or one of the huge secrets is that system has been suppressed because the whole source of energy is fossil fuels, and it's really the pollution side of apart from that, it's just a control of resources. So,
I think that's, one of the best examples of those consciousnesses that you can see living under that, the consciousness of scarcity begets competition, corruption, manipulation. That's just the byproduct of that consciousness. And to your point is, as we evolve more and more into the consciousness of abundance, we will discover, because remember, it's already here.
Right.
The internet has always been here.
Right.
We are just, our level of consciousness wasn't aware of it until we discovered it. So I think as that old consciousness, just like the sun going down, it's not like an on-off switch. It's gradual over time. And I think that right now, I actually believe that the abundance energy is greater than the old energy. But what we're seeing is just the last dying breaths of an old creature that, again, because we've been programmed for so long to believe in these old ideals, we can't see that the new sun it's shining. And so I'm with you, man. Once we discover how to just collect energy right out of the ionosphere that's freaking permeating every inch of our reality, one, you could have electric cars. You don't even need a battery. You just need an antenna that's sucking in the juice, More effective ways to, because once we discover unlimited sources of energy, more efficient ways to provide food, then it just takes it to the next level. Until, again, the discoveries under the new consciousness just far outweigh the old one. And then people will it'll be a huge exodus out, because the old system will be so archaic, it will be so obsolete that to stay in that system, your cognitive dissonance would have to be on a level of such delusion, that, oh my gosh, to still be using dollars or to still be using fossil fuels, like, what is wrong with you? You would even be questioning your own sanity,
Yeah.
So, that's a future I'm really looking forward to. And right now, I'm just playing a game. To me, this is all just a game.
Well, that's the thing, is the education, the rules, now that is a lot more available, and especially with things like crypto and what that can be in the future, like internet for money, like literally the internet for money, like what the internet did for knowledge and education and all that, like crypto will be that for money, and people will learn it on their own. They'll learn it through YouTube. There's really, it's just, I think that's going to be a huge thing. So yeah, money and energy. Oh yeah. The two biggest ones I think we'll see in our lifetimes that will change.
For sure.
For sure.
We're really young too. So I just finished Tony Robbins' newest book, Life Force, and man, he's talking about, I've told you, I'm going to Mexico to get stem cells, like to just have a preventative routine. But for us, within the next 25 years, there will be advancements in medicine and in health that it's going to combat aging, that we'll start getting younger and start feeling at our peak for even longer.
I'm curious, to both of you, what is, in this year, what's one of the most fascinating books that you've read that probably added the most value to you?
Oh my gosh, man, that would be hard.
I would say The Sovereign Individual, for sure. That was a real interesting because it was historically based, and it showed the cycles and how these things evolve and kind of projected that. And they wrote that in 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say probably the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, you're going deep.
I haven't read that one yet.
I've already been through the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm about halfway through Sadhguru's newest book, Inner Engineering. Actually, I don't think it's his newest, but that one's been really good.
Dude, 2001.
Oh,
Space
finished
Odyssey.
that, and I watched the movie last night.
Oh, did you watch the movie? It's pretty funky, huh?
It's interesting. It has a lot of music scores.
The music was horrible.
Which book? Inner Engineering?
Inner Engineering, yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Bob Monroe's was really good.
I didn't get to that one yet.
That one was really good.
But yeah, even
Monroe's
just
too.
Finding Monroe Institute,
just
man,
the knowledge
that's
of that aspect of things. But Arthur C. Clarke, 2001: A Space Odyssey, the book, was a really interesting read. And then his next one that I read or listened to was Childhood's End. And that goes along with what we were talking about here. It's just this. It's a really good sci-fi fiction books. Both of them are, but they're based on exactly what we're talking about here in the evolution of consciousness and how this is. This has happened many times before, and it's going to continue to happen. And there's forces and beings and things that we can't even imagine. But that was a really interesting read, and to see it kind of happening. Like Ken said, I mean, I've been following that as well too. The disclosure of UFOs is just, I mean, the government's just come out and said they're here. We see them. We've seen them.
Can't hide this anymore, guys.
What's that?
That's what they're saying. We can't hide this.
Well,
anymore,
yeah,
guys.
and why? And the one I listened to last night was why now? What's changed? Is it the government? And the governments or the human race is revealing these things for their own deal, or are the actual forces saying you're ready, or hey, you have to tell them now, or we're going to, type of a thing. And that's a whole nother interesting conversation of the ins and outs of that and how that could play out. But it's pretty nuts. I mean, if you watch the naval videos that were taken in 2017 and 18 of the jet pilots chasing these things around, is wild. It's crazy.
I mean, those are the type of things, more than like an apocalyptic crash of these markets, is something like that would be even more exciting.
Well, Childhood's End, the aliens do come. They show up, and it solves pretty much all the world's problems. Like, literally.
What if they're dumb?
Oh my gosh! that can't be. That'd be wild.
You'd hope they'd
How
have to
could how could a dumber? Have
Hey, I
access
just
to
posed the
intergalactic-
question.
I know, man.
What if?
That would be like a mind.
There's some
like,
dumb humans.
It could be some redneck aliens,
yeah.
dude. I mean, think about...
But we only say they're dumb because we are just one step ahead.
It's a continuum.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, actually,
Some
I was
extra
once
woke
that
people
dumb.
will hear this and think I'm really dumb.
Oh,
so, yeah.
man, I'll tell you what, we're screwed. These episodes, the woke mom's knocking on the door, man. We're getting murdered.
Yeah.
Oh, this one was tame. Because that one that I had, my buddy Sean, in fact, he's going to come on tomorrow because he studies like ancient Egyptian mystic schools. He's big into like that occult and very counterculture. But what he was telling me that just was a total paradigm shift is, and this goes back to our conversation on school, is back in Egyptian culture, there were different languages. The language that the slaves, the language of the rulers, the language of the gods. So the gods make up the rules that the rulers enforce upon the slaves. The slaves never even learn the language of the rulers. The rulers never even learn the language of the gods. So the same thing's happening today. The education system's only teaching a certain bandwidth of information to keep them as slaves. And so then right above that, even like the people in government, like they're not the gods. They're just the ones that are enforcing the rules that the gods created. So then there's families, there's individuals on the planet right now that they have, it's a lineage of knowledge. That's the real education. If you're these families, they just keep teaching it down the line, So they're up at the very top. And so we're all playing the same game of Monopoly, but most people don't understand there's different sets of rules, and actually they're all open to anyone. Like this, here's a big thing I've really discovered in the last few months is that even at the very top, they have a code of ethics that they're much more adhered to than even the slaves or the rulers. So one of the code of ethics is transparency. So all the rules are open to anybody, but you have to go find them. So like the people that are at the bottom playing the victim, the reason how they can stay as the gods is that, hey, the rules were out there. You just didn't go find them. You chose, you consented to go to our public schools and get our public education. Like, you could have picked up a book and read that there's different codes and different things that you can arrange your affairs in such a way that you can live like the gods, but you didn't want to. So how you can't blame us.
Plausible deniability.
100%.
Yeah.
So hey,
And that's why that book "Thou Shall Prosper" from a Jewish rabbi is so good, because he talks about in the beginning how the Jews believe they're the chosen ones. So when you're ingrained that I am the chosen one,
right,
they live up to that because you're already placing them up here.
Right.
And if you wonder why they've created so much wealth, well, it's because of this foundational belief system that they've been taught.
Well, and that's
Same
what
with, like, Mormonism.
Well, but
Wow.
I think that's what's being taught right now through some of the information that is available, especially like on Gaia, and the thought process is like everyone. The big secret is that everyone can achieve that. Like, you can have that mindset of abundance, have that mindset of whatever it is. You just have to focus on that, and we've just been distracted for the longest time to focus on these lower vibrations, these lower levels of things, and people are just waking up because it's just not working anymore.
Right.
So, and that's really the exciting time. I mean, it's a super exciting time to live.
Oh yeah.
It's a crazy, crazy time to see these things happen and have to be empowered in it. I mean, just the empowerment of crypto. I mean, just to be able to manage your own money and be able to move it around and do what you want with it based on your own information is pretty powerful. Than
Very
just
much.
earning a check and putting it in the bank. Like, that's pretty much the extent of it. And
Right.
if you got what was called education, you could invest it in the stock market. Like, that's fairly limited.
Do what we tell you to do.
Exactly.
Yes, I mean, it's such a great time for all of us, to be going through this time. And man, I mean, all the time I'm refocusing to gratitude that I don't know what I did in past lives or whatever to be where I am right here and now, 2022, and to say, man, my life is great. Because there's a lot of people right now that, man, they're going through some challenging times, and the heat is only going to get hotter. As that old system burns down, like, it's going to get hotter.
Yeah.
And if you're not waking up and learning lessons and being willing to say, man, the way that I've been doing things has got me to where I am right here and now, and right here and now sucks. So rather than pointing the finger, I got to take personal responsibility, and I got to change the trajectory of my life. A lot of people aren't doing that, so it's going to keep punching them in the face, trying to wake up, change your ways.
The Matrix.
Yeah, the Matrix,
man. It's all the Matrix. But yeah, no. So that'll be interesting, man. I think that's our jobs as we are moving to these scenarios where work, finances per se are become less important. You have more time to do what we're doing right now, and more people are open to that. And our job is to just hopefully kind of just spread it and share it and drop a little hint. And if someone, what was that? What'd you say? It's like,
right.
Oh, okay, well, let me share this with you now. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
It's crazy fun, man. Well, thanks so much for coming, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Gary.
Yeah, really appreciate it. That
Always
was
a good time.
Nice. Nice.
Is that a wrap?
It's a wrap.
I gotta pee.